مشاهدينا في كل مكان، اهلا ومرحبا بكم. احنا معاكم النهارده داخل سفارة جمهورية البرازيل لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. لقائنا مع سعادة السفير باولينو نيتو سفير جمهورية البرازيل. في لقاء اليوم احنا هنتحدث عن اهم المحطات الدبلوماسية لسعادة السفير، وايضا هنتحدث عن الطبيعة الجغرافية للدولة والشعب البرازيلي. لمعرفة المزيد تابعونا وهذا اللقاء. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، بيسعدنا ان احنا نكون اليوم في ضيافه سعاده السفير سفير دوله البرازيل باولينو نيتو. سعادته احنا النهارده هنتكلم معاه عن دوله البرازيل وعن الشعب البرازيلي. Your Excellency, please first allow me to thank you so much for this interview.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, National Egyptian Channel, and to convey a message to our friends here in Egypt.
At the beginning, I would like to ask you about your diplomatic stations before coming here to Egypt. So can you tell us more about it?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a long time since I'm a career diplomat. I began my diplomatic career in 1887, a long time ago. I've been posted to different countries. The first one was Italy, Rome. I worked at the Brazilian embassy in Rome. Then I went to Chile, Santiago in South America, also at the Brazilian embassy. Then I went back to Brazil, to the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Brasilia, in our capital. And then I went to Geneva, to our mission to the United Nations in Geneva. Stayed there for quite a while, I think 5 years. And then I went back to Brazil again to hold a different position. I was one of the Brazilian negotiators for environment, climate change, biodiversity. So I stayed at this position for more than 4 years. And then I was responsible for the Department of North America and of the Organization of American States. Then I get my promotion to be ambassador. In the grade of ambassador, and I was indicated to be the Brazilian ambassador in Africa, in Angola, in Luanda, the capital of Angola, and I stayed there for 4 years, went back to Brasilia to be Vice Minister of Multilateral Political Affairs, and since last year, August of last year, I'm here in Egypt as the Brazilian ambassador to Egypt, which is a great honor for me.
That's a great history, but this is the first Arabic country you have.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's my very first Arabic country. Unfortunately, I cannot speak yet Arabic, but I'm studying hard, and I hope I can grasp some of your beautiful language with an Egyptian accent, I guess, I hope.
That's great. Your Excellency, can now we talk about the place of Brazil on the map and the geographic nature of your country?
No, it's as you know, Brazil is it's a big country, a huge country. I think we are the 5th biggest country in the world in terms of territory, with more than 8,100,000 square kilometers. We are located in South America. We occupy a good part of South America, more than 50%. We have different climates in Brazil, in different regions, regions that are semi-arid, regions that are in the tropical forest, regions that are subtropical, and we have the rainforest, the Amazon forest, which is a huge thing for Brazil. So it's a country with many, like Egypt, with many and different aspects, geographical aspects. And it's a country with more than 200 million inhabitants, twice the population of Egypt more or less, concentrated basically on the west side of the country. We have 2 big cities, São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but also other big cities, and including the capital, Brasilia, which was inaugurated in 1960. In a process that is quite similar to the one that you are here living in Egypt now, with the new administrative capital. So we had to move from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia And it was a huge effort that we made, but in the end it worked very well.
Your Excellency just said that you have a different climate in the country. Does this different climate enrich the natural resources of the country?
Yeah, for sure. We are in a way a tropical country, but we also have a kind of savanna part of the country in the middle and central west part of the country, which produces a lot of agricultural commodities, and we export for different countries, so that allow us in Brazil to be one of, I think we are now the second biggest exporter of food commodities in the world. We export a lot to Egypt, including Egypt.
We'll talk about Egypt and Brazil for sure, definitely, and the trading and volume of trading in between the two countries, but later on, yes,
okay,
sure. I know from Your Excellency about the people, the Brazilian people, their traditions and customs and things like this.
Brazil, it's, we have people from different origins. We have, I mean, basically Brazil, the native inhabitants of Brazil were the indigenous people of Brazil, different indigenous people from in the north part of Brazil, in the southern part of Brazil. And then arrived the Portuguese. We were discovered by the Portuguese, let's say, in 500, more than 500 years ago. The Portuguese went to Brazil and they began populating Brazil. So, and then after the Portuguese, we had lots of African people coming to Brazil during the slave trade period in Brazil. So, and then we had quite a big group of different peoples from Europe, from Spain, from Portugal again, from Italy, from Germany. We had also received a huge quantity of Lebanese and Syrian people. So we have an Arab community in Brazil, which is, they are very influential and important in Brazil. So Brazil is a kind of a melting pot. We have people from different regions, which is one of, let's say, one of the assets that we have in Brazil, and people living in peace with different languages and cultures. So that's one of our assets, I think.
But with this great diverse that you have already in Brazil, do you have traditions, things that kept along all this time?
The language in Brazil, we inherited from the Portuguese, from Portugal, the Portuguese language. So all of us speak Portuguese, even the ones that came later on to Brazil, even the Syrian, the Lebanese, the Japanese. We have an important Japanese and Chinese community in Brazil. And so the language is the thing that unites in Brazil. We tend to be very happy people. I mean, we are very similar to the Egyptians, I must say. And so it's a way of unifying our customs, our different cultures. We have the sense of being part of Brazil, of being Brazilians, although from different sources and in the regions in the world.
Do you keep until now some handcrafts that really have the title of "That's a real Brazilian life"? How it was?
I mean, the handcraft is basically the one that comes from the indigenous people in Brazil. They produce things manually done, and it's part of our culture. And also the Brazilian African people who came basically from Angola, which is now Angola, but also from Mozambique, also from Benin in the northwest part of Africa. So it's a mixture of different cultures.
Brazil are known as the most popular tourist destination in the whole world. So what distinguishes the tourism sector in Brazil?
The tourism sector in Brazil is getting better now, it's improving, but I think that we could have more tourists. We have, I mean, the nature is what attracts in Brazil. We have the rainforest, we have the Atlantic forest in Brazil. We have different kinds of rivers and different kinds of soils and even the cities in Brazil. We have Rio de Janeiro, which is a beautiful city. It's a tourist attraction. We have Carnival in Brazil. It's a huge popular manifestation in Brazil in February during this high summer in Brazil, let's say. Brazil, as a tropical country, it attracts lots of people from basically Europe, the United States, and different parts of the world. We have beautiful beaches in Brazil. We have rivers that are also a attraction in Brazil. We have the Amazon River, just like the Nile. It's a very important river in Brazil. It attracts many people. The rainforest in Brazil is also a huge attraction for foreigners to know how huge and immense is the forest. So it's getting more and more foreign tourists in Brazil for these specific places. And we have also a beautiful city, which is Rio de Janeiro. It's the second biggest city in Brazil with different attractions. It's a very lively city. And we also have São Paulo, which is our biggest city. It's the most rich city in Brazil with an important industrial sector with many cultural attractions, restaurants from different parts of the world. So there are many things to see in Brazil, and one of the most important things that I would say that Brazil is particularly special. It's people. People in Brazil are very open to foreigners. They receive foreigners very well, and they feel at home in Brazil. So that's one of the most eminent qualities of the Brazilian people.
And also we hear that the carnivals and the music has a great impact on the people and also on the visitors.
That's true. Carnival, it's let's say it's for Brazil, it's like maybe the most important image that foreigners have of Brazil, the lively of the music, the samba, which is very it's in our soul, let's say. We are very happy when we have the carnival. People are in the streets dancing and having a very lively attitude and conversations and receiving strangers. We have all schools of music in Brazil who go to the streets and dance, and so that's a beautiful moment that we have in Brazil. It's normally in February, end of February, middle of February, depending on the calendar.
The country, but I would like to know also more about the industry. What distinguishes the industry in Brazil?
Yeah, the industry in Brazil is quite diversified. Since the 50s, last year, 60s, we had begun transforming our industry, substituting imports from locally produced things. We have an automotive industry, we have a steel industry, we have a food industry, we have even a company that produces airplanes, commercial airplanes, Embraer, which is a very important company in Brazil. We're even exporting to many countries, Egypt, including Egypt, for local companies. So Brazil is a developing country, it's an emerging country, but at the same time we have a quite sophisticated industry and diversified industry. It's maybe similar to Egypt in a way.
If we talk about the role of women in Brazil, how can you describe it nowadays?
Women in Brazil are getting more and more a very important role. Equality of opportunities for women in Brazil is one of our utmost priorities at different levels, local level, state level, and federal level, not only within the government, but also in civil society. The importance of defending the rights of women, of empowering women, that women must have the same pay as men if they have the same kind of job. So it's a fight. I mean, it's not easy for different reasons for cultural, religions, but we are doing good improvements in Brazil on the rights of women, which is very good. from our perspective. It's in diplomacy, we fight for women in different fora, in multilateral fora, in the UN system, in regional fora. So we need to do more, but we are in the right direction regarding women's rights in Brazil.
I cannot leave the meeting with Your Excellency without talking more in the little details about the agricultural sector, especially the exporting field, and I'm gonna be more specific and talk about the coffee.
Yeah, let's begin with coffee. Coffee is a traditional culture, plantation culture in Brazil. Since the 18th, 19th century, we are still the biggest producer of coffee, basic Arabic coffee, which is very special one. We export a lot, but not only coffee. Nowadays we export corn, we export orange, we export fruits, we export wheat. I mean, there are different products in Brazil, including meats and not only agriculture, but also products from the sector of meat and sector and pork and beef and so Brazil, I think is the second, as I said, second exporter of food commodities in the world after the United States.
Can you please at the end tell us a little bit hint about the Brazilian cuisine?
Well, the Brazilian cuisine is we could imagine, is much influenced by the indigenous who were in Brazil before the Portuguese went to Brazil. It has also the influence of the Portuguese and the African people. So we like very much to eat rice, beans, meat, manioc, cassava, which is very common in Brazil. We eat a lot of fruits in Brazil also. And we have some special dishes. We call it feijoada. It's an example. It's made of rice, black beans, meat, and it's one of the most traditional plates that we have in Brazil. And also we have a huge influence from European countries, from Italy, from Germany, from Spain, with what we had before with the indigenous people in Brazil. The indigenous peoples always use much of cassava or manioc. It's a local staple in South America and in Brazil also. And then we received the influence of the Portuguese, different things that the Portuguese eat, and rice, potatoes, different meats, pork meat, beef meat, I mean, are part of our traditions. And then we received much influence from Spain, Germany, Italy, and also from Lebanon and Syria. There's a important group of Lebanese and Syrians that went to Brazil during the first part of the 20th century and before that, end of the 19th century. We also have the influence of the Japanese. It's curious that the Japanese restaurants in Brazil are very, very common. We have Japanese restaurants in all big cities in Brazil, and Brazilians also love the Japanese and Asian food, let's say. But
sounds like it's an international cuisine.
Yeah, it's a mixture of different cuisines from different parts of the world. But we basically, on a daily basis in Brazil, we eat rice, black beans, and meats, and salad. That's our basic staple in Brazil. So, but it's the many different plates in Brazil. The food is not that spicy in Brazil. It's regular, like in Egypt, I would say, and it's a very rich food.
That's great. Your Excellency, I will have to stop with you your interview now, and I hope we have another interview to talk about the relation between Egypt and Brazilians. So thank you so much for your
appreciate. Thank you very much for your huge effort. Thank you. Thank you very much.
مشاهدينا في كل مكان، وبكده انتهى لقائنا الأول مع سعادة السفير باولينو نيتو سفير جمهورية البرازيل لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. على أن نستكمل إن شاء الله حوارنا في حلقة قادمة. أشوفكم على خير وإلى اللقاء.